Today's episode is brought to you by Buried Treasure Liquid Nutrients. Buried Treasure has been a family-owned company since 1969, and their products are backed by years of research, clinical studies, and proven results. They believe in providing the highest potency, highest quality ingredients with fast absorption. You can find Buried Treasure Liquid Nutrients for men, women, and children, along with their award-winning immune support products at buriedtreasureln.com. Buried Treasure, the leader in liquid nutritional supplements. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Holistic Navigator podcast, where we believe in the body's capacity for self-healing if given the proper nutrients and care. My name is Brian Strickland, I'm the producer of the show, and in the studio with me today, as always, is our host, Ed Jones. On this week's episode, we're talking with Dr. JEROD Bergman from Hedron Life Source, a company that creates products for protection against EMF. We're taking a deep dive into the world of electromagnetic fields, and Dr. Bergman gives us his thoughts on 5G and how to protect yourself and your loved ones. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this show rolling. Here's your host, Mr. Ed Jones.
Thank you so much, Brian. And today we have one of the most important holistic navigators I think that I probably am considering that we've ever done. Maybe not but it's in the top 5, and it is on EMFs, electromagnetic fields. Before I introduce our guest today, who has created a truly innovative technology that can give us great peace of mind in dealing with these worries and fears of the exposure of EMFs. But my personal history on EMFs is basically about 27 years ago, when I used to modestly believe that I need to go to a doctor to be checked out. There are times we still need to go, but back then I was a little bit more into that. So I went to a doctor one day, and he listened to my heart. And I was, almost 30 years younger, in great shape, did everything right as I always have done. But he heard some little echo and this and that. He wanted me to do a thallium test. And that's where they inject some radioactive material into your artery, and you run on a treadmill and blank, blank, blank. Well, when I finished, all was good. Everything came out great. But because I live near a nuclear plant, I had purchased a Geiger counter that stayed on 24/7 in case the plant was leaking and I might have a little warning. Now, keep in mind, I wasn't an obsessive person. I just took steps, and I kind of put it aside. Well, that day I came home, I started walking through the kitchen, and the Geiger counter went off, and I was clueless. And every time I walked past where I had stored the Geiger counter, it would go to the full level of radioactivity. That was my first indication of the power of, radiation's not really EMFs, but it is still electrical energy. And that's what an EMF is. It took 2 months for that thallium to get out of my system. And it really was a game changer for distrusting conventional medicine. And then secondly, I started about 2010, actually hired a seamstress because we would buy big rolls of the material that you could cut and make to your bedside sheet that would be modestly protective of EMFs. And then lastly, I formed a business about 10 years ago to visit people's homes and, check out where the wiring was, where if they needed to move their bed, because I'm a huge believer, as Dr. Klinghardt speaks about, is creating a sleep sanctuary against EMFs. And there's a yoga facility, and I'm going to then get to the guest here. I'm rambling too much, but there's a yoga facility pretty close to us that has a massive copper building. And it's in McMinnville, Tennessee. And I went there about 2.5 years ago, and I'm telling you, people who are listening, we don't know what we don't know. The last time that I probably had that little EMFs hitting me, I was a young whippersnapper, maybe not ever in my life, because that copper building seemingly was like a different world. And so when I visited that building a few years ago, it was such a game changer, and it completely made me realize the power of unhealthy EMFs. So today we have someone who's a wonderful expert. He has a technology that I have utilized, and I'm going to tell everyone that I personally am endorsing this product, and you rarely hear me say that. But we have with us today from Hedron Company, Dr. Bergman. Welcome to the Holistic Navigator.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
My daughter, Katie Coleman, is the one who actually found you and your company, and she was all about your technology. Everything she read, she was like, Dad, you got to look at this, because she knows I'm a very open-minded skeptic. That's what I am. And when it comes to these devices that can block EMFs, I had tried several, really just never felt the confidence, never had any physical feelings or any kind of intuition that they were valid. And I just wrote them off maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And despite the fact that I know EMFs are going to cause ultimate diseases in people, it's going to cause emotional distress, it's perhaps, and we may talk about this, it may be a trigger for some pandemics, and that might be another thing to add to the list. But once you sent me one of your pieces of technology for me to try, and it is like not day and night, but it is so significant that I will never not have this device on me. So welcome again to the show, and I want you to kind of just go where you want to go and explain to people maybe the little bit of history about, you know, how you did this, where you come from, and how this thing really seems to work. My sleep improved, my mood improved. That's all going through probably the most challenging times of our life, and I cannot say enough about your Hedron devices. So explain to people where you come from and what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So basically, I am from Wisconsin, just a Midwestern, kid that grew up on a farm. And I am a chiropractor. I practice nutrition. I have a functional and regenerative medicine clinic. Basically, my wife is also a chiropractor. We were curious about what is this, cell phone, cell frequency, EMF. What is this actually doing to us? Because at the time we had our first son, and we're like, well, what is it doing to our child as well, because we saw some information and we decided to look into it deeper, because initially we were both quite athletic, and we were looking at human performance to see how we can enhance ourselves, and was EMF causing a problem. And it didn't take us long to find out that it does pose a problem to the human body. And that's when we dove into, figuring out a potential solution. And that's what started us off, I guess. That we realized, and now that's medical fact, of course, that electromagnetic, the body is electromagnetic in nature, where we are basically at a quantum level. We are 99.9999% energy, and the rest of us, that's matter, is 0.00001%. So how do we affect this energetic portion of us? Because it's what makes us, right? So we got into what is considered the biofield. And a lot of people out there don't understand, what's a biofield and how does that affect our health? So we dove into that more. We researched, and we traveled all over to try and find people that we could work with that could help us on determining what the best technology would be to support the human biofield and support the resilience to the body for electromagnetic frequencies. so what we have to understand is we're surrounded by electromagnetic smog, so we're bathed in it continuously, whether it's electromagnetic radiation, just electromagnetic frequencies, and now we have RF, EMF, the millimeter waves, which is the 5G. So we're basking in basically a sea of this electromagnetic smog, and it causes electromagnetic interference to the body. So what we see is very small. So what actually is going on is a very big impact to our health. One of the major things with the biofield is people have basically this mystery that surrounds it because we don't know how it works. There's something that is called ultra weak photon emission, and that's when the cell communicates to another cell through light, essentially. And on one photon of light, you can carry 100,000 bits of information, which means you can transfer your entire genetic code through one photon of light from cell to cell. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of information and a lot of communication happening, but that can be disrupted by the EMF. One study they did was they shined a laser light through a person's eye to see how fast it would or how long it would take to get to the back of the skull, the occipital lobe of the brain. And then they shined it on a strategic part of the foot. Well, it got there faster when they shined it on the foot. It lit up on the brain scan faster than what a nerve could transmit. So how does it do that, right? So the biofield travels at the speed of light, but even faster than the speed of light, because now we know that the speed of light isn't a fixed number like we once thought. So I mean, the biofield is quite incredible, quite complex as well. But the key that we figured out with our products was actually to strengthen the biofield, to strengthen the body's adaptability, to protect the DNA of the body. Because the DNA is something called semi-crystalline in nature. It's a liquid crystal, and they also call that phases of DNA, phases of liquid crystal DNA. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You can go ahead and you can look this information up very easily. And also, you could technically go to PubMed and type in biofield. You're gonna see over 150 papers on the human biofield.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that PubMed actually had that many. That's wonderful.
Yes, definitely. I mean, exploring the biofield is one paper. Biofield science, that's another one. The current physics and perspectives, mental health and wellness in the biofield therapies. I mean, there's so many of them.
Well, and not to interrupt much, but so what you're saying is, of course, you're explaining how we are electrical beings. We're not flesh and bones. We are, but it's really controlled by the electrical fuse box within us that then is connected to a Earth's type of frequency. I think it's by like 7.83 called the Schumann or something, which you can explain if you want, but I don't think we need to. But when we're out of sync with the harmony of the magnetic fields of this Earth, we are going to suffer something, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, all three of those, because something's happened to this world in the past 10 years that is really unexplainable. And for people who want hard, fast facts, who have to be 100% analytical for making a decision, I'm sorry, people, you're going to wait too long and then decide, well, I'm now an old person and I should have done something before. One of those is, again, to me, create a sleep sanctuary. I've done a lot of podcasts that talked about it. I interviewed Dr. Mercola about 6 months ago. We spoke on the EMF issue and what to do in your bedroom. Very important. But I do want to say, as far as what you are going to talk about, my friend, is something, though, that I completely have felt a difference the first time ever. And so, Dr. Bergman, if you want, I know we have a pendant and a attachment for the cell phone. So you have two different things, right?
Yeah. The attachment for the cell phone, that it basically tags that 7.83 hertz riding on a scalar energy wave. And then we also inputted 528 as far as another frequency is concerned. But we essentially have our own impregnation technique to actually put into a proprietary technique to put into these frequencies into certain crystals and minerals that are within the devices themselves. And then we have a specific designed antenna as well that actually helps output that. So we're not actually blocking it, are we? We're actually recreating the kind of almost like it's being put back into us so that we stay more stable? Or tell me that. Yeah. So basically what we're doing is we're putting the frequency of the earth, because you had mentioned the Schumann resonance, and our brain waves are one with the Schumann resonance. Consider food and water. Food, we can go 40 plus days without water, and food, it'd be 8 to 21 days without. But the Schumann resonance, or that ionosphere, in less than an hour, our blood pressure becomes unstable. In an hour, our short-term memory is impaired. After 24 to 48 hours, we experience stress, emotional distress, migraine headaches, psychosis, nausea. It goes on from there. That was the Weaver study done in 1960 to take out Schumann resonance. But they had to terminate that study because of the side effects were so bad. Mm. So anytime we have man-made electromagnetic frequencies, it's called transverse electromagnetic frequencies, and our DNA operates off of longitudinal waves and instead of transverse waves. And these longitudinal waves are extremely important to support, and that's what these frequencies do. They support that. And this is by design to protect the living DNA. These devices that we made out of this paramagnetic earth material, and even monoatomic minerals or ormus minerals that are similar to the ones that we have in our pineal gland of the brain.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting, because most people don't realize the pineal gland controls and really sends a lot of information to the body of what to do, what not to do. Now, I used an analogy once that if you had two violins, which is true, if you have two, you pick up one and you do play one, the second one, if it's close to it, will resonate on some level the same exact frequency. It sounds like this is what Hedron does. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. To a large degree, it does. It resonates with the earth frequencies, and that reinforces those frequencies that the body craves, so to speak. There's, and you had mentioned blocking frequencies. Even the partial blocking mechanisms for phones and things like that. You can take a tri-field meter and check the outside of the phone if it has a cover over it. But if you're getting a signal through, that signal is going right through the head to the screen to be able to contact the phone. So the blocking mechanisms that are out there can actually be quite dangerous. But balancing or harmonizing the frequency, that's what we're all about.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get back to our conversation with Dr. Bergman in just a second. And we don't do this too frequently, but we wanted to tell you a little more about our sponsor today. in one of their daily driver supplements, Buried Treasures VM100. Nearly half of all Americans take a multivitamin, but few are actually paying attention to exactly what's on the label. So in your opinion, Ed, what should people be looking for in a multi?
The 4 tips that I always advise people on when you look for a multivitamin. Number 1, fast digestion. What does that mean? It means do not, in my opinion, buy tablets. They can be very hard to dissolve in many people's body, so I recommend very aggressively to stick with capsules and or liquid. Secondly, it has to contain a natural form of folic acid. If it says folic acid, I completely would encourage you not to use that. You need something that says either food folate or methylfolate. Thirdly, current type of potencies that's based on research, not the really low dose and not the stupid high dosing, just that one kind of proper dosing that we all know that we need to be healthy. And lastly is clean ingredients, no chemicals, none of the red dyes and all the other products found very consistently in many multivitamins.
Yeah, and thankfully Buried Treasures VM100 hits all of those marks. It's even in a BPA-free bottle, it's gluten and dairy-free, free from common allergies, and vegetarian safe. And it's a liquid, so that means you're getting that fast absorption and more bioavailability. So if you're looking for a potent plant-based multivitamin, be sure to check out Buried Treasures VM100. To purchase or learn more, visit nutritionw.com/shop.
Wow. Well, when you sent me the pendant, I was interesting looking, and I, again, open-minded, somewhat skeptic on these things. But I always say yes before I say no. So I try everything out. And so I put it on. I will say about 3 days into it, I was just kind of thinking it was pretty cool. But about the 4th to 5th day, something shifted. And despite the fact of going through some of the most challenging times of most people's lives, I felt, not all the time, but I didn't feel scattered as much. I didn't feel I was being pulled to pieces. I didn't feel that I was kind of drowning in something that's invisible, which at times you can, if you're really a connected, intuitive person, you actually sense that we're not in the most friendly place environmentally. And it probably is mainly due to the EMFs, electromagnetic fields. And you're right, because if you try to just run around and block everything, it would be like you almost have to go live in a cave the rest of your life. And that's not practical. So what do? We can't really block because it's like an ocean and you're swimming in it. So I love the technology. I love the philosophy. But within a week of wearing yours, I truly will not take it back off. And I do have also the shield on my phone. Now, could I say I felt the shield on the phone? No, it gave me peace of mind. But I did feel the Hedron pennant. And I want to not talk much about this, but there is very strong evidence that the EMFs, especially the 5G, is perhaps part of the issue with disease and pandemics, because there's some correlation between every time that we introduced something that had to do with a new technology of EMFs, there was an outbreak of things. In fact, there was a physician named Dr. Furstenberg who wrote a book called The Invisible Rainbow, where he correlated some of these things. So now I also noticed on the pendant that you recommend that I take it off every few days and lay it on the ground. And I've spoke about grounding many times, which is basically we put our bare feet or touch a tree for a good number of minutes in order to basically get realigned with the electrical system. So that's doing what to this Hedron? Is it cleansing it? Is it recharging it, or what?
Yeah, so the crystals, the minerals, and the black color, that's basically shungite as well. How that is all set up, the shungite actually will, it's a specific molecule called fullerene that'll actually take up static from the systems that leftover electricity, so to speak. It will take up that static, and what you're doing by grounding it every once in a while is dissipating that static back to the earth. And that actually is one of the protective mechanisms behind the pendant.
Oh, wow. I love that. And I've done it about every 5 days when I was in a place I could do it. So I love the whole philosophy of that. Real quickly, what is the impact of sunspots? Do you have an opinion on, does sunspots increase the EMFs? I have an app on my phone where I used to look at sunspot eruptions that are trying to correlate how people felt, because I talk to people all day long about their health. I talk to them about their diseases and their nutrients and their emotions. And I was trying to sense or see if there was a correlation between sunspots, because doesn't sunspots put out a new surge of EMFs? I'm not real sure. I'm asking.
Yeah, it does. It does put out a surge of EMF, and that surge can essentially, we have something in our cells called calcium ion channels, and that's how the cell creates a balance from the inside and the outside. And this also happens when we surge the globe or electrify the globe, like we're going through now. The calcium ion channels actually become dysfunctional, and that depolarizes or can depolarize our mitochondria in the cell, which is the energy powerhouse of the cell, and that causes a breakdown of the DNA.
Dr. Bergman, I love the explanation of the physiology of EMFs, because a lot of people may sit back and say, this is a really gray science. We don't really know. It's vague. No, it's not. We know that the calcium channel voltage gate, which is what controls the influx or outflux of calcium, is critical to messaging. When you have too much or too little, it is totally destructive. It has to be in a rhythm of within a certain frequency to be healthy. And I did a podcast on the amazing ability of magnesium, because the only nutrient that I truly feel that might have some modest protection against the EMFs is taking the appropriate levels of magnesium, because it's affecting the calcium channel voltage gate. So nutritionally, yes, we nourish all the time, but there's really no magic bullets or pills or anything. But please listen to my podcast on magnesium, and it's got 300 different purposes. So listen at the Holistic Navigator. So I love the fact you've explained why it works, how it works, what it does as far as the long term, and why that is probably at this point, at least in my world, about the only solution that I'm seeing, other than, again, and I speak about this on Mercola, in your bedroom, we need to be positioning things in the proper place. We need to be turning our router off with a timer at night. We need to be doing multiple things, but that still does not really put us back into tune-up mode. It's just decreasing the amount of damage. And with your pendant, I'm confident that it's like the two violins playing, and your pendant's playing constantly, and I'm hearing the music, and I'm starting to sing back in tune again. So now this pendant, I guess we would wear it 24 hours a day. Water doesn't hurt it, or sweat, or do I need to do anything else with it?
No, I mean, just grounding it twice a month is ideal. For only about 5 minutes, and really, just wearing it. That's the big thing. Or you can even keep it in your pocket. We like it. We like people to wear it around their neck, because our main electromagnetic generator is our heart. And if we can amplify our output to the world, which is our heart, our biofield, that's an excellent position for that. Those out there that get the whole aspect of frequency and how important that is. I mean, your brain is really the tuning, and your heart is really the output. And that's part of the reason we have people wear it around their neck. But it does work in a pocket as well.
That's awesome. And, I'm not downplaying the importance of the cell phone attachment, because I have both, and I'm going to recommend both to people who really want to have more of a sense of well-being. there's a lot of things in life we can put a lot of effort in to try to help protect us, help to optimize. But with EMFs, again, we're in an ocean of it. And you either have to forget about it and try not to worry, or you worry and do nothing about it, or you take a step in some direction, which is, to me, considering your device. Now, that doesn't mean in 5 years I might come out and think, oh, well, this is another different technology that might outpace it. But right now, to me, this is the way to go by perhaps considering getting the cell phone connection protectant and the pendant that I have. Now, one last question before we wrap up. If I'm wearing this pendant and I'm holding or sitting next to someone, is that offering them any protection?
It does, because the pendant has a field range of at least 6 feet.
Good. So my daughter, Katie, with her grandchild, so when she wears it, he's getting the positive influence.
Definitely.
Now, what would you do, like a 1-year-old or 2 or 3 or any small child? They're sleeping in their own bed or their crib or whatever. They can't wear it. So would you just hang it close to them if that was appropriate?
Yeah, you can. You could do that. You want to be sensible about it because it is a smaller object. You don't want you don't want them to swallow it or anything like that. The other thing that we do use is we call it a home harmonizer, and a lot of people use that where they slide it under a crib, and that's to help protect against geopathic stress, which is a totally different but similar aspect to electromagnetic frequency coming from the Earth that can be hitting us throughout the night.
Wow. It's so interesting you mentioned that. It was probably 30 years ago. I used to go down to a naturopath in Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Seneca Anderson, and I actually trained with him for quite some time. And he would have probably 50% of his patients were cancer survivors or being treated. And I remember so well the number one thing he told me. He said, if these people don't follow my recommendations of putting cork under their mattress, I don't think they'll survive, because geopathic stress from the Earth, which is different, like you said, but it's kind of a cousin to EMFs. We don't balance that. The body cannot heal. So he would send people to Home Depot to get cork first before they would go to the grocery store to get healthy foods, because he said the healthy foods won't work if you're disturbed by the geopathic. And this was 25 years ago. So what an interesting concept. I didn't know you had that, so I may ended up getting me one of those. So that's wonderful. Now, I could attach this pendant under a crib and tape it to it, and that would work too.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Any last tips or information? Because before we leave now, here on the Holistic Navigator, we partner with nutritionw.com for all the products that you desire from any A to Z point, including these. Hedron is, we'll have it under different words, but Hedron. And then if, you can certainly tell your website, Dr. Bergman, and help people with any other information links or whatever. You have a really nice site that is very informative, and I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can get a hold of us at hedronemfprotection.com. And if you have any further questions, we're always happy to answer those. And we try and get back to you right away too. It's support at hedronlifesource.com. So, I mean, some basic things that people could do at home too is, put their Wi-Fi on a timer, like a Christmas tree timer. Maybe unplug all these things in their bedroom. Put their phone on airplane mode at night, especially put it about 3 feet away from you. Hardwire all your computers in your house if that's something you can do. No light in the bedroom, because light is EMF source as well. And then, you can always put like a night shift screen on devices as well to block out the blue light. Make sure you're 8 feet away from a big TV, because that puts off a lot of EMF as well. Try to avoid electric cars. That's another one, because that actually disrupts the human biofield greatly. So just some things that people can implement right away.
Well, that's wonderful tips for the consumer who isn't aware that they actually have some very valuable steps on their own that they can take to lessen, not totally, but every little bit helps. And again, I'm huge about recommending people to ground their own human bodies. That doesn't happen when you wear shoes. You have to have some kind of very close actual skin contact. Why do you think people feel better at the beach? Everyone thinks it's because of the sun, and that's part of it. But the other part is we walk barefooted on the ground and we become grounded better than we did the previous 11 months before we went on vacation. And, if it's too cold out, you can go touch a tree. It does take more than a few minutes to do this, but do all you can on as regular a basis as possible. Well, Dr. Bergman, it was wonderfully educational. I'm so thrilled to finally be able to recommend a device that I trust. And if people who listen to me know me for the past 40 years, it's not common that I do that. So I will keep everybody abreast of my opinions and developments on this, but I'm very confident. Again, you can order it through nutritionw.com. You can certainly go to your website. We just want to help people, especially now. I think it's more important than ever. In fact, in my local town, they're rolling out 5G faster than almost any town in this part of the United States. So it further increases the need for people in this area of Chattanooga and Tennessee to do something of wisdom. Approximate pricing before we end here, just so people know. Can you tell that retail?
The Cell Shield is around, I think it's the $50 area.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the pendant, the last time I checked, was a little bit more than that.
Yeah, you're like me. I deal with products and all day long, and I deal with information, and I don't ever remember exact pricing because I'm more about the background and the studies and the recommendations. But I think you're close. I kind of looked it up, but I don't have it in front. Hey, it's worth every penny, and I appreciate the fact that you actually are keeping the cost in a reasonable area. We've seen some of these things that are outrageous, and that doesn't need to be. So I honor you, Dr. Bergman, wonderfully for all of you and probably your wife's hard work to develop something that this world needs. And we will probably be talking to you again in a few months about any new developments. I'm sure you're working on more things, but I thank you so much for joining me on the Holistic Navigator.
Thank you. It's been great.
Awesome. And for everyone listening, please hang in there, nourish the body, stay calm. And better times are soon to come. And please get your toolbox together, whatever that feels comfortable to you. My toolbox is, again, right nutrients to keep the immune system healthy. Certainly listen to the past 2 podcasts with Dr. Wolfson and especially Dr. Michael Smith, who's the medical director of Life Extension, on how to put the toolbox together for an optimal immune system. And please consider doing something about these EMFs. First step, just like Dr. Bergman said, your bedroom, please do at least a few of those things. Secondly, if you have the budget to support it, get at least a pendant. If I have to choose between the two, personally, I'm going to do a pendant over the phone, even though the phone is terribly, terribly for us too, but I'm still going to do the pendant. Everyone out there, stay healthy, stay calm, stay nourished. All will be well. Thank you. This is Ed again at the Holistic Navigator.
The information on this podcast and the topics discussed have not been evaluated by the FDA or anyone of the medical profession and is not aimed to replace any advice you may receive from your medical practitioner. The Holistic Navigator assumes no responsibility or liability whatsoever on the behalf of any purchaser or reader of these materials. The Holistic Navigator is not a doctor, nor does he claim to be. Please consult your physician before beginning any health regimen.